of February 16th. Do we have any corrections? Do we have them?
I make a motion to approve.
Thank you.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right. Approve the CEO evaluation process. Do you want to talk about that, Brett?
Yes.
You look like you're ready
Yes.
to say something.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
And thank you very much for being willing to be on this esteemed panel that meets 2 times a year.
That's
We
the way-
moved this first meeting up by a month because last year we had 5 brand-new PSDA board members join in January from around the county. And of course, they could not participate in the process. So this way, this year we only have 1 change, Commissioner Long, but she can participate now. And then that way Karen Seal, who's joining in January, doesn't have to participate. So it's a month earlier, but your action this morning is to recommend approval of the process that we ask all the board members to now do using the same form that we've used in prior years. And I'm just going to walk through how that fits into the overall evaluation of me, the CEO, but it's the exact same process that all the employees of PSTA now cover, which has all changed in the past year. The board adopted this new compensation structure last February, and it is part of our diversity, equity, inclusion program that we have here at PSTA, where we are careful now to track compensation and how we're equitably, distributing that across different levels of the organization. You might have recalled, I copied this right from the PowerPoint that Trish gave last February. We had a lot of discussion, and I know in prior evaluation processes for me, the PSTA board focused almost exclusively on equity or how much the CEO at PSTA was being paid compared to the CEO at Hart or at other comparable jobs. And not too much discussion, maybe it's a good thing, I think it has been a good thing, on actually merit or, Brad might be doing a great job or a terrible job. Not much of that was discussed, just like how much compared to everybody else. And that was kind of the same at a lot of positions at PSTA. So we split it into 2 sides. Dealing with the market and the equity, the market rate, are comparing it to other comparable jobs is in the yellow buckets, and that's already been taken care of under the new process. We did a compensation study of all the positions of PSTA, and we made adjustments this past August to about half of the positions of PSTA based on a compensation survey across public and private organizations across Florida, and then even other transit agencies outside of Florida. Same thing was done for my position, and that's on the next slide. Then on October 1, a 2% adjustment to all employees was made on October 1 as part of the adopted budget. The adopted budget included 3.5% for all employees. 2% was based on sort of a market rate adjustment upward on October 1. And it technically was not available to employees that are either not under some kind of performance review process at the time, if they weren't doing satisfactory work, or if they had only been here for less than 6 months, they did not get that. But then separately, based on the evaluation of their performance and whether or not they get a merit allotment, The remaining 1.5% is being considered now across all the employees. For all the other employees, it'll take effect on January 1st. For mine, it will be approved or not approved at the January board meeting. So that's the red bucket. So this is the exact same process that we went through for about 100 positions at PSDA. We got the average salary and the median salary of other transit CEOs. That included Hart, Orlando, Jacksonville, Palm Beach County. They surveyed, I don't think there was any position for transit CEO at St. Petersburg, at Pinellas County, at Hillsborough County, City of Tampa, but they also did Nashville, Tennessee, and about 4 or 5 other places. The average salary was $258,000, but of course that is the true mathematical average. There's some people that are paid very, very high amounts. The median was $239,000. And what we did generally was try to allot, we have a grade and step process at PSDA, try to peg something probably closer to the median for most jobs than the average. And so there was a grade right where the median would be set at 242.9. Then, after every position was set at a new grade, a new median, we then attempted to move everyone to as close to the median as we possibly could. That was the one-time adjustment to get them to be more equitable within their market. And so my salary was adjusted to 89% of that 242 number, that 89% of that. Every other employee at PSDA was adjusted to 90% minimum. Either 90, the lower level of employees were moved to 100% of the midpoint, and then 95% for the directors and managers on up of that midpoint. So, not that any employee would say this, but you could say I'm the lowest paid employee at PSDA, or the lowest compared to my market, which is the goal of the system. Then, like I said, every employee, including myself, got a 2% adjustment. So my current salary is $221,718. So what the evaluation that the board will now do is not based on my market rate. Now I am fairly paid compared to my peers, and that's what I tell all my employees. You are all fairly paid now. Now we're just talking about merit. And there's 2 parts within the PSA system of how we define merit. What you did in your job, how successful you were in your job, and then how you did your job. For the CEO, what I did in my job is based on the performance scorecard, which you saw at the board meeting. We got a 98 out of 100 on our performance, how well we did our work. I'm responsible for the whole organization, so mine is just the corporate scorecard. As you go down in the organization, they have their own goals, they have a department scorecard, and so those carry more weight. So that part is done. The board's evaluation is how I did my job, rating me on those, what we call commitment to guiding principles. And all the employees get evaluated by their managers on this. This is based on things like communication, whether I value developing the employees, et cetera, things like that. After today, if you approve this process and recommend this, Rachel will send this form out to all the board members. They will think happy thoughts, fill it out, send it back in. We will meet again on January 20th and look at the results, and then the Personnel Committee can vote to recommend the 1.5 merit adjustment or not. I think for The rest of the employees will, they're getting their evaluations right now, so I don't know exactly, but I think the vast majority of folks will get a score high enough to get the 1.5%. So that's the presentation. That's the process. Glad to answer any questions.
Okay. Josh?
Thank you. What was your salary before the adjustment that was done in August? I don't have the
I
minutes.
think it was like 212.
212?
It was like a $5,000 one-time adjustment.
Okay. Why was it decided, so I appreciate that this is the process that went through, this is what we had talked about bringing everybody along. I'm actually surprised that it went with a lower midpoint salary, right? So the whole point, like, you're at 89%, managers and directors are at 95, lower level
Go to
employees are at 100% of the midpoint. So I'm wondering why you're below that. You're probably surprised that I'm asking that question, but I've always felt that you should be compensated based on, what is fair and the value that you bring. And so I'm surprised that it's as low as it is for your adjustment.
89?
The 89%.
Well, that was just arbitrary.
It appears that way, yes.
I could have put it at 90 like the other directors. I wanted to, we also set a cap, and this only affected maybe 3 or 4 employees. A cap, the maximum increase you could get was $10,000. That nobody could get more, if they were underpaid by more than 10, we just capped them at 10. And so, but that, even with that $10,000 cap on any employee, everybody still got to that 90 or 95 level. It's just some got, to 96 or 97% or whatever.
What was the thought process about the cap?
What?
Why a $10,000 cap, other than potentially being arbitrary?
It was just arbitrary, just that we would continue to try to make sure that they are equitably paid, but that for the same work.
So my concern is the goal was to move, and I realize this is your compensation, not everyone else's compensation, but the goal was to move to an equitable rate. And if we capped and we didn't get necessarily everyone to that equitable rate, then we're still not there. And we have an inflation adjustment, and we've talked about this, I mentioned at the board meeting, right? So yesterday or Friday was reported, like, the inflation for
Tampa Bay
was like over 8% now, year over year. So we're now even further behind where that would have been. So we haven't caught up. So I feel like we're gonna be doing the same exercise again a few months down the road or a year or two down the road and saying, oh, we're everyone else is further ahead, we're falling behind. So I'm just, I'm surprised. I expected after our conversations from last year and then earlier this year to see a much larger shift in your base pay than we're seeing here.
Well, the PSA board has adjusted my pay over the last couple of years to try to get closer based on this. So, yeah, it was only about it was a nice, I think about $5,000 adjustment to get to the 89. I mean, I just wanted to, I arbitrarily moved it from 90 to 89. It wasn't a big deal. But, and then we're not planning on doing we're not planning on doing this compensation survey every single year. We'll do that every 3 years.
Okay.
Is the plan. So, I mean, do you think that public sector employees are getting like 8% increases right now?
No, but that doesn't mean that it's not warranted, right? So,
Right.
and it also, as part of this exercise where we were outside of just purely looking at inflation, we were looking at adjusting your salary based on the market for your, like, if you got hit by a bus, not one of ours, and we had to hire somebody in, where would we be hiring them? What would that look like, right? So that's a commensurate sort of salary. And so I just expected a larger adjustment to get us closer to, so that we were then remaining on par, outside of the 8%. That's just, that's an extra reason why it makes sense.
Yeah,
to me to make that adjustment, not the primary reason.
well,
And I'm appreciative of the fact that you want to get paid less.
Well, but the problem is, somebody came in and offered you $20,000 more because that's what you're worth. Then we're looking for another CEO, and we don't want to do that.
And we can't just say, well,
Right.
but you said that's all you wanted to get paid.
Right. That, we're trying to do this and we're not gonna do it again for another 3 or 4 years, then you're gonna be behind for another 3 or 4 years,
Well,
at least.
um,
And then you'll be that much more behind.
Well, you still get a raise next year.
Oh, but so does everybody
Yeah,
else.
but so does everyone else, right?
Right.
So,
now, what Trish and I have talked about, and we'll just have to see how the budget looks. But, because, I mean, I think the goal, and I think the PSA board is supportive of, trying to follow for the CEO, the similar process to the rest of the employees. So we've tried to do that.
But you haven't.
The idea would be if we could move all the managers from 90 to like 95 to 100. Like about half the employees are already at, with over the next, between now and the next survey. So that, that my market amount would go up to get right to the median number there, to the 242.
well, except the problem is that number is going to be moving away from you every year anyway, right?
Well,
You would expect that those numbers are gonna be inflation adjusted at all those different agencies at a certain rate. So it's, right, and that was the
Yeah.
the sentiment I made when we were talking about the contract negotiations for the supervisors and their union contract, is that, if we tried, if this is the number we're trying to get to, and we say, okay, we'll get there in 5 years, we gotta remember this number is moving also. So
Well,
the
yeah, no,
goalpost is
no,
constantly moving, we're never catching up.
Right.
And on a pure dollar basis, it's actually getting further away, right? Because the percentage increase on a larger dollar amount is a bigger dollar, and then you compound that, and it keeps growing. So it's actually moving further away faster.
well, that's what the 2% on October 1st is for, is to try to keep with the rising tide. Yes, we set everyone, the goal is to set everyone to the market rate and then keep them on pace with the rising, their peers across. So if we can afford to move all of the managers to 95 maybe, or maybe to move all the employees to right 100% of midpoint, and then still have like the 2%, I mean, it's not, maybe right now that's not appropriate, but it would still allow it to rise a little bit with everybody else.
Well, right.
That would be the idea.
I mean, I know what you're saying. And that's great, but you did that with everybody else but yourself.
I'm pretty darn close. I mean, 89 versus 90.
But that's not close to 95. If the others are at 95, then why?
No,
are-
well, the chiefs and director, the top 18 people are at 90. Well, most of them are around 90.
Yeah.
I seem to recall that in the past on these evaluations, that there was a section where we would give a recommended percentage increase. And I don't
Yes.
see that on here now. I know we can change it, but I'm wondering, how are we going to get to a conclusion on where that increase should be?
Well, we took that, I think we actually took that off before. But,
Oh. Maybe I'm thinking back a couple of years then.
yeah, no, I mean, I was assuming that we would stick to the 1.5%, yes or no. And that we're doing for all the other employees. I mean, I wouldn't say no to more, but,
But we could do that.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
thank you.
I have one comment.
Yeah.
Brad, believe me, I think you do a wonderful job, and I have the most respect for you every time, we talk and we work together. The only thing I'm concerned about is I approve a raise for you if we all wanna go higher. The only thing I'm concerned about is the other employees seeing that your raise continuously goes up a little bit too high. Like you said, it's a morale thing. I really think that's important. Right now, I think the morale of the PSTA is at the ultimate highest I've ever seen it since being on this board. And I don't wanna lose that ground that you have. You have that right now. I feel that, and I see it when we're having events and stuff. That's my
Yeah.
only concern.
But
Thank you, Madam Chair.
who's responsible for that?
He is.
Right.
Exactly.
Although I will say that I think there is a correlation between positive morale by at least the leaders of PSDA, and when the board votes unanimously in a very positive way on a pay increase for their for their leader. They like that. And I think they kind of like it, as you're saying, Commissioner Saraki. Oh, then maybe Brad will be nice to me too, and give me a big high jump.
There you go.
Kind of thing.
Well said.
So yes, I do think it is important not to stray too far away from what all the other employees. Yeah, just try to keep the morale very positive.
Well, and I don't think anybody's talking about putting you at 100%, but
Right.
we could recommend a 2.5% and get you at 90% like everybody else.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
which is still.
I've said this in the past at board meetings and personnel committee meetings. I get concerned when the CEO's raise on a percentage basis year over year is greater than what the employees are getting. And we've done greater in the past because we were trying to move Brad closer to where his pay should actually be.
Right.
And earlier this year, I felt, I don't remember how I voted, but I know I was not pleased with us going higher because I was afraid that it was telling employees we're valuing more. And I said, we're gonna do this pay adjustment over the summer, right? We're gonna retool everyone's pay back to where it should be.
Yeah.
And then the percentage raises each year will be in line, and so everyone's getting the same, which seems more equitable. Not seems, it is more equitable because everyone's getting the same thing with a portion based on merit. Obviously, if they didn't perform, they're not getting that. So I would be more inclined to, I wouldn't want to go more than the 1.5, but I want to change the base pay, right? So, and say that salary adjustment, even if it's just from 89 to 90, there's the 1%. Put it on the base pay as the should have been salary adjustment as part of the overall mix, and then keep the raises in line with what all the other employees are getting.
Well, exactly, but so how do we do that?
You have to do a raise.
I mean, because you've already done these things, right? You've already done these salary adjustments
Can we make a motion for an increase of 1%?
to,
We haven't done the evaluation.
As the committee, you could do that.
we have to recommend that to,
It would come back to the PSA board at the January meeting along with this as well. Yeah.
Well, but the pay changes themselves were not brought before the board, right? We agreed to go through this process to adjust the pay, right? But I don't recall this change to 217 coming before the board at any point,
we're saying that, okay, Brad only gets 89%, everybody else
Right.
gets at least 90.
right? So I would think, and I would have expected actually to come back to the board, since we're the ones in charge of your compensation, and to approve or not approve that 89. So I would say that was probably a misstep in that regard, and so we need to go back and make that salary adjustment, because otherwise you just adjusted your pay.
Well, but we approved it.
We approved guidelines for
Approved
doing
the
it, but we did
process.
not approve the rate and dollar amount, which I would
Right.
think are just
Right.
something, at least at a bare minimum, we'd like to
Which
dot
had
i's
you
and
asked
cross
us, we
t's.
would have said at least 90%.
Right.
Okay. Well, that would be fine. So we would,
I mean, if I'm wrong, I mean, that's just.
No, I think you're right.
okay, well, we
I agree with you.
we could, how about this? We could have sort of an action item of an A and a B. We would have A,
Approving the market adjustment.
approve the
rate
market
base.
adjustment to 90% of 242, and then the merit adjustment of 1.5
Yes, yeah, okay.
as a B, as a separate, consistent
Okay.
with the rest of the employees.
And I think that does, I think for me, it winds up being the same math.
Yep.
It's better
Right,
that
right.
the employees see that your raise is the same. Your market adjustment is actually still the same or less than people on your
Yeah.
level. And I think that's an equitable way to do that. Although I still don't think 90% is the right number, but I can't make you take more.
Right, and then
Well, good, but-
I'm trying.
well, I mean, maybe what we do in the future is have a, I don't know, a personnel committee meeting like in August or September, where the personnel committee just looks at any market adjustment that might be appropriate for the CEO, based on our budget as overall and what we're
Right.
doing for the other employees and everything. Anything to do with market, we would maybe move to the fiscal year start.
I think that makes sense. And
I
I
like
think
that.
any of those changes at to the CEO's compensation should ultimately then come through this committee and then back to the board
Yeah,
Yep,
for a
I
vote.
agree.
I agree.
Okay,
That sounds like a,
So a two-step process.
yeah.
Okay.
So do we need a motion, Madam Chair, for a 1% increase?
yes,
What's your question?
I think this meeting is just to recommend the form
Approve
that's
the
going to be
process.
used.
Right.
So
Okay.
then everybody will fill it out, and then you all will come back
Well,
in
yeah.
January, and then that's where you,
oh, then we come back. Right.
But technically, it is
Decide
to
the
approve the
amount.
process.
right.
I would say
Okay.
this is the process.
All right,
Okay.
okay.
So since we're talking about process, and I had a problem with this on the form last time, and it's my over-interpreting things. On the scoring scale, what I struggled with was scoring scale number 3, that this rating describes the employee whose overall adherence to this principle meets expectations. I have high expectations for you, and you meet them. So for me, that's a 3. Without talking about specific goal. But, when I looked across the board, everyone else was 5 or 4. And so it's not gonna change the outcome, it's not gonna, move the needle at all. But I didn't know if there was a better way to say that so our scores could align. So what we're scoring is actually what we're scoring and not, you know what I'm saying? I know if someone had a better wordsmithing of meet the expectations.
Yeah.
Performs adequately,
I think-
maybe?
I think the way to look at this is not so much what are your personal expectations of the CEO, but what are the expectations as they relate to the job description and the job requirements. If yours are higher and he's meeting them, then you would score higher. But it's based on the expectations of the job. You
Okay.
know Brad, I know Brad, and I expect him, because I know him, because I know that he's well qualified and a great leader, I expect him to score high or to exceed the normal expectations of a transit authority CEO.
And that is a great explanation and a way of changing how we're thinking about
Yeah.
the form. So I think just a sentence along those lines added to the instructions at the top that says, these guiding principles are to be taken in light of any of the job performance of a transit CEO or something like that.
Yeah,
Like I said, it's not gonna move the needle at all, but you get more overreaders like me on the board, and
Yeah.
all of a sudden the scores are gonna start to diverge in a way that doesn't indicate what they truly are saying about your performance.
Right.
And I don't want that to happen.
So if we added something that established
Like even
sort of
saying
a
it's not,
baseline,
right, it's not your personal expectation, it's the expectations for,
Right.
the performing this particular job.
Yeah.
right.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner, I like that.
Does that make sense?
I couldn't figure out how to do it, I just underlined it going, I don't like it.
It's a good point.
It tripped me up last year.
I know that we've had lots of discussion, or the results from the 15 different board members, and there's been different board members over the years. Everybody has their own sort of scale
Mhm.
in their mind. Yeah. And your point is well taken, like, if you're like in school, I don't think, getting a C
Right.
is meeting expectations, you know? I don't
Well,
think the teacher says that.
yeah.
It could be if you have if you have a child that's struggling, and I think we even used this analogy line, it seems very deja vuing right now.
Yeah,
You know, you know, a C for someone who's a D student is a great, I mean,
Right, right.
you know, so, yeah, I get it. But I like the idea. I think if we can just add a little bit to the instructions, you know, that it's
So-
not personal expectations, it is job expectation.
If I may.
Oh, yeah, please.
So, I would suggest that under the instructions, the first sentence of the second paragraph could be changed to read, "This evaluation form presents the opportunity to review the CEO's adherence to PSTA's 5 guiding principles as," oh, I just had it. And performance based on,
as required by the.
Well, maybe,
based on
description.
requirements of the job description.
well, maybe we
So
say
it
something.
maintains the guiding principles, but it just says as, and.
Or as they relate to the job
Adherence
description.
to PSTA's 5 guiding principles and performance based on the requirements of the job description.
But maybe we say something more like a C should be considered, for example, a C should be considered average or acceptable.
Well, that's why I even
Whereas
said, like,
if you know that he's exceeding that,
and that was one of the things I also thought, acceptable was the exact word of, you know,
Well,
instead of
that
meets
is what they use,
expectations,
but, yeah.
performs acceptably,
yeah,
right? Because then that means, you know, I think to a lot of people that I'm willing, it passes.
I'm willing to accept.
It passes.
Yeah.
It didn't wow me, it
Yeah.
didn't excite me,
Yeah.
it just passed. So I think that you also changed the word meets expectations to accept, you know,
I mean, it does say acceptable level, but then,
so I brought this up to Rachel in an email last year when we were doing this, and I said, I read that, and the two sentences don't match, because one's acceptable and one meets expectations, or meets expectations. And I'm like, well,
yeah,
so again, this is me overreading, but I think if we're talking about the process and putting this out to board members, it's just easier to clean it up a little.
but if we said something about average performance, would most people understand that to mean, we of course want better than average, but
Yeah.
that's acceptable.
Right.
Average is,
Right, so adherence to this principle is average.
where are we?
The last
You-
sentence.
You're saying that 3 is average.
Is average.
Right,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then 4 or 5 is above average and 1 or 2 is below average.
right.
Yeah,
So we just changed the last two words also in 3, instead of meets expectations, to is average.
Meet.
Right, adherence to this principle is average.
or, yeah,
Sounds good.
meets average expectation.
But again, so whenever I hear the word expectations, it flips in my
Well, I
mind to
know,
what
yeah.
I expect.
Yeah.
Right.
Meets average performance.
Yes.
maybe.
Yeah, there you go, average.
Which is also why,
performance.
you know, Gina's adding the sentence you know, in the
Yeah.
instructions at the top to, it's about the job description, not a personal set of expectations. So,
Right, right.
Yeah.
wordsmithing, it's fun.
Good dialogue.
Okay, so what do we end up with?
So do we need, are we looking for a motion do we need to vote to approve the form
Yes.
with the changes?
Yeah.
Yeah, but what did we land on for changes?
So the changes that I've written down here are to, up in the instructions above the box, to add at the end of evaluation presents opportunity to review CEO's adherence to the PSA's 5 guiding principles and performance against the CEO job description.
Okay.
And then,
I would say based on rather than against.
or based on, based on,
This is what happens when I get here an hour early.
okay, and then, number three, inside the box, number three would be the title of which, would be changed to average performance?
No, I think we were, no,
You're okay with it, acceptable?
Yeah.
Title's good.
the title's good, I think just taking out meets expectations, the last two words of that description.
Okay, yeah, so then.
Adherence to this
the
principle
second
is
sentence-
average.
The second sentence would say, this rating describes the employee's overall adherence to this principle is average.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, that makes a big difference.
And I think that accentuates that it's acceptable and it's kind of
It's kind of.
just barely what you expect.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Now I'll feel better about my scoring.
All right, so I'll move to approve the form with the changes just stated.
Yes.
Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we have done that. All right,
So a question about just the process. So when we get these forms back in January, since there's no official tabulation, like, we're gonna then just use the scoring to then decide whether or not that 1.5% increase is warranted, if the board agrees that the merit increase or not the merit increase, right? So
right.
versus
But
in the
we
past,
also
we've had a
have-
sliding scale.
We'll have the scorecard again too, which is
Yeah.
not a decision point, but it adds to the, okay.
The way we set it up, for all the other employees is any employee that achieves a 95 or above overall score, gets the 1.5%.
Okay.
And anyone that, is below, 95 does not get it, or if they, had not started here in the last 6 months or some other things. But generally, if they get a 95 or above, and then the performance scorecard, which is a percentage, and in the case of the CEO, 75% of the percentage, it's a big portion, it goes down, it was a 98.
Right.
So I think I calculated that the overall score out of
You'd have to get
25, it was like a 21. That the board had to, if the board gave me a 21 on average, then the 1.5, at least by the scale of the other employees, and I get the 1.5, if it was below 21, I would.
Okay, so we're not doing it's a binary state, yes or
Yeah.
no, on the 1.5.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I realize we don't have to, but that was that's how we're treating, that's how all the other employees are treated.
Yeah,
Okay.
All right,
and we agreed within Trish and I agreed that we're gonna give this process a shot and see if it goes well. If the managers all come with 500 different exceptions to the rule to us, then we will have to change it.
okay,
Yeah.
great.
Okay.
Then that's all we needed to do today.
I think so.
All right. we
Thank
are
you,
adjourned
everyone.
then.
Great
Thank you.
meeting.
Thank you. I would be interested in like, I don't know about St. Petersburg, but Pinellas County and Oldsmar's evaluation, whether, how you guys identify a 3.
I'll have to go see. Yeah,
Excuse me?
for the CEO, you think?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Check it out.
If it's average or if it's acceptable or.